Hello there, this is Robbie from the Lowdown Truth. I wanted to talk to you today, July 27th, 2025, about why rideshare sucks. Especially about why driving for rideshare apps is not worth it. Now, I understand that there are benefits to it, and some people, it can work for some people. But if you're trying to make it a full-time job, profession, like a taxi driver used to be a profession, it's really not worth it. And the reasons are mostly the liability that you're incurring is not worth the money that you're getting. The model that they have set up is one that really only benefits the owners of these companies and the shareholders, or the very few people that are making large profits off of this off these rideshare apps, specifically Uber and Lyft. It used to be that private taxi companies in every city were beneficial to the drivers and the owners. And I would say also they provided a professional service for passengers that could be relied upon and that was stable and safe. But now what you have is a sketchy service that's has drivers that are not professional, that very well could be on heavy drugs, very well could be sex offenders, could be criminally minded people, driving people around that may not be very good drivers, even, that are not screened, do not have taxi license. And you would also find out that the insurance and such is questionable as well. So as a driver, I did another video on Uber and Lyft that is a little more objective, but after driving for these apps with the rideshare for about 3 months, I can compare it to the 7 years I drove for traditional taxis, real taxis in my past. And I've been doing the food delivery, which actually I think is a good model of business, even though it has its issues. But I think it's a better model for if people want to make money and not have the liability. I think the food delivery is a lot better of an option. But the rideshare, I would say it's not worth it for anybody to do it. I know that some people do it, just to not really for the money, but they're retired or something and they just want something to do, and they're not really worried about their hourly rate or the liability, so they're happy with it. But anybody that's like a working age adult and they're trying to do it for a living, or even just a side job, I would say that you have to really consider the liability that's involved. Sometimes people find out too late that taxi driving is one of the most dangerous jobs that there is. There's more taxi drivers that are robbed and murdered than in any other profession. So to think that this is like a safe job to do, especially at nighttime, is really not true. It's a very dangerous job statistically, and especially for women. So I think that a lot of people find that out the hard way after they get robbed or beaten up or raped or murdered. So, it's really kind of this false idea that you can just do this rideshare thing and it's fun, you just drive people around. That's not it. And you definitely don't get paid enough to deal with that kind of liability that's involved, just with that danger of dealing with violent people, criminals, psychotic people, which you are definitely going to come into contact with if you do this for full time, or even part time if you do it long enough. Because out of every 1,000 people, there's one psychopath. Out of every 100 people, there's probably a psychopath, and people that are going to possibly do you harm or rob you or something. So just that liability of having somebody in your car that could be dangerous, could be criminally minded, is and you don't have the protection of a divider between the driver and the passenger. Like in the larger cities, you don't have that. I just think that alone is a reason not to do this, not to do the rideshare. And you don't get paid enough to incur that liability, that danger. Lyft, it throws out a lot of $4, $5 runs. Now you're getting offers that are $4. That is absolutely ridiculous to think that you're gonna do anything for $4. I don't know who does that, but $4, $5, $6 runs, those are just garbage. You can't make any money driving around people for that little of money, and 90% of people don't tip, so that's another reason why it's not worth it. If 90% of people tipped instead of only 10%, then rideshare driving would at least pay for the danger and liability that's involved. But that's one of the problems, is they've created this culture around rideshare that you don't have to tip, whether the apps are charging people too much, or they just made it so like your neighbor's driving you around, and this person's not really a professional, so they don't respect the profession, they don't respect the driver, so they just don't tip the drivers. Everybody will tip the barista and the waiter and the waitress, but they won't tip a taxi driver that is risking his life or her life driving around all the day, which is the most dangerous thing any of us do, is drive our cars around, and also incurring a liability and the danger of having, dangerous people in your car. You're driving them around. So for some reason, they've created this culture around rideshare where people don't tip, and that makes it not worth it. If most people tipped, then it would at least make you enough money to be worth the danger and the liability involved, possibly, or at least close. But as it is, Lyft, they at least tell you like how far the trip is going to be, where it's going, and how much they're going to give you, the upfront cost payment. So I do appreciate that. And they also tell you the name of the person, the passenger, and has a picture of them usually. So all those things are good. I like that about Lyft, but they're basically trying to pay you $1 per mile or less. Like sometimes, and a lot of times, even less, especially on longer runs, less than $1 per mile. So it really just is very cheap, and usually with Lyft, there's multiple passengers, 2, 3, 4 people, and you don't get paid any extra for those extra people. So Lyft especially has cheap passengers as well that are not tippers. They generally are using Lyft because it is cheaper, so they also don't want to tip. So Lyft is just crap. I mean, I would probably accept 1 out of 20 offers, and even then it was not very good. I would say Lyft is just like absolute crap, really. And then Uber is also not very much better. The thing about Uber is if you don't have an acceptance rate of 80% or more, then they will not show you how far the trip is going to be. The only thing that they will tell you is how far it is to the pickup. And that's it. That's all they really tell you, is where the pickup is and how far it is to get there. And they don't even really tell you where the pickup is very well. They just show it on the map. But they don't really tell you who your passenger is either. It's not easy to see on the offer screen, and so you don't know the name. It doesn't show the name, at least not clearly. You might be able to push up on it. I don't think so, though. But so they don't really tell you who the passenger's name. They don't show a picture, so you don't know who it is. And they don't tell you how far the ride is or where it's going. So it's just really crap, unless you have an 80% or more acceptance rate, which is impossible to have if you do Uber Eats as well. If you do Uber Eats, you cannot have an 80% acceptance rate and make any money, because they give you so many crap offers for Uber Eats that you would only be able to do the UberX Rideshare, and then you would have to accept a lot of garbage offers just to have that 80% acceptance rate. A lot of those offers are $4, $5, $6, during rush hour, the middle of downtown. I mean, just not worth it. And the people, again, they don't tip. So what is you're not making any money with a $4 or $5 offer that's not tipping. And a lot of people even going to the airport or going on $30 runs, they're not tipping either. 90% of people basically don't tip, which is, a big reason why rideshare is not worth anybody's time unless you're not worried about making money. If you want to make, $18, $20 an hour using your own car, driving people around that could rob you or murder you, and taking on the liability of getting in a car crash and being sued, that, go ahead. But I guess you have nothing better to do, because any job really would be safer and more secure and have less risk to it than that. Just driving around is, like I said, one of the most dangerous things any of us do each day, especially taxi driving when you are driving in the middle of all kinds of traffic, and you're also driving with people in your car, which is very distracting, and in all times of the day. So taxi driving is probably the most risk of driving in itself. You're driving in and out of difficult places, on highways, in the downtown, through suburbs and parking lots, all of which you're taking upon the dangers of just getting in a wreck at high speeds, at low speeds. And that's the other part I was going to talk about, besides the specifics about like the offers on Lyft and Uber and how low they pay. Uber is also about $1 per mile. And that is the insurance liability. And this is probably the straw that breaks the camel's back, because on top of all the the non-tipping and the dangers involved, you're looking at a lot of liability with the lack of insurance. And even the insurance they do provide is really not very good. If you get in a wreck with a passenger, Uber and Lyft, they provide the insurance, but if it's your fault, then you have to pay a $2,500 deductible to get your car fixed. Or I don't know, maybe even for your personal injuries, but at least to get your car fixed, a $2,500 deductible. And if you have your own insurance and you have collision with a lower deductible, they say they will match that lower deductible. But that means that they have to contact your insurance, and the insurance will find out that you're doing rideshare. And if you're not paying the extra fee for doing rideshare, your insurance will probably drop you and deny your claim. So you will have to pay the $2,500 deductible. You will lose your insurance. And if you're at fault in a wreck with a passenger, then you will lose your insurance unless you're paying the extra $100, $150 a month for rideshare insurance. Then you will lose your insurance as well. And I would also say that if it's your fault and the passenger gets hurt, they will probably sue you. I mean, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that they would actually sue you personally. If they couldn't get anything from Uber or what they want from Uber, they might sue you. So, the liability of driving a passenger is very high, considering those factors. Now, if it's not your fault, then the other person in the wreck that is at fault will have to pay for the damages. But if they don't have insurance, or they are underinsured, or if your insurance finds out, even if the other person is at fault, your insurance may find out that you are doing rideshare and they may drop you. So you could lose your insurance, and the other person could be uninsured. So, I'm not sure the coverage of if it would be adequate, even if they were insured. So, yeah, the passenger, if they were injured, they may sue you as well, personally, civilly sue you, if they couldn't get what they wanted from Uber or Lyft. So the whole legality and the liability with insurance is, in itself, makes rideshare a very sketchy job that really is not worth it, because people do get in wrecks a lot of times, and sometimes it is your fault, or it's deemed your fault, even though maybe it was partly the other person's fault, but you become at fault. So even if you're driving very carefully, wrecks do happen, and people, you can't trust passengers not to try to get something out of that accident, saying that they're hurt when they're not, or that it caused emotional damage or anything like that. They will they will sue you. They could sue you, and nobody talks about that. And that would never happen if you were a real taxi driver working for a private company, that you are protected no matter if you have a passenger or not. You're protected, and you would never have to worry about any type of insurance issues. But with Uber and Lyft, you're supposed to get this extra coverage, rideshare insurance added to your policy, which could cost you couple thousand a year, which just means that you get paid less. So these are the reasons why driving for rideshare sucks, and it really does. If you're desirous to be a taxi driver, I would suggest driving for a real taxi company and not these sketchy rideshare apps. I think also, as a passenger, I've never personally used Uber or Lyft, and I never will. It's something that I just, as a principle, I will never use those companies myself. It is sketchy to get in somebody's car that's never been screened for a job, that's never passed a drug test, that doesn't have a taxi license, it doesn't have proper insurance. It's very sketchy. You don't even know if they can drive very well, if they drive professionally, or they just do it as a side gig. You don't know who they are, what they're doing it for, and if they are good drivers. So why would I get into a car with some stranger and risk my life? I think it's very risky to be a passenger in a rideshare car, and especially for women getting in with men. And I hear that they're rolling out this program where women can choose, women passengers can choose to only have a woman drive them around. And I understand why they're doing that. And I think it's a good idea for women. But the problem is, now the men are going to have, that'll probably continue to the point where all women will choose that option. And so the men now, they have half the fares. And they also, there's not as many women drivers, so the passengers are going to have to wait. They are going to have to wait twice as long. So why not just choose a real taxi? Because the whole complaint used to be that taxis took too long to get there, and they cost too much, and they didn't provide as good as service with the nicer cars or something. All this stuff, but there's a reason, why the taxi business is the way it was. Uber and Lyft are not, legitimate. They are not providing you a professional service with the safety and the insurance coverage that you really need and you should want as a passenger. So I think the whole thing should just fail, and the taxis, the real taxi services, can come back to life. I personally would never, like I said, ever use Uber or Lyft. And as for, being a driver for them, I would only do it if I had to make money, only if I had to. And I would much rather just do food delivery. And at this point, I have another job that I got. I just got another job, so I don't have to do the rideshare anymore. And I'm very grateful, because after a couple months of doing it, I realized how much it sucks. And I just wanted to let you know, if you're thinking about doing it, or you are doing it, just to give you some advice, get another job. Don't be part of something that is, asking you to take on all this liability and danger, and is paying you $4, $5 for your time. I mean, it's absolutely insulting. And the fact that people in our culture now don't tip taxi drivers, don't tip Uber and Lyft drivers 90% of the time, is unacceptable. And it's not something that anyone should do for a living. That's all I wanted to say. God bless you and your efforts, and I'll talk to you next time.